Today I'm going to talk about coping with death. And here to help me is my special guest, Ire. She has a little wounded paw, and she's just lost her mom. At least I think she has, because I found her in my living room the other day. No idea how she got there, but there was another black cat in my home. And it does not appear to have been this animal's mother, because she didn't approach the kitten. And that gives Ire something in common with me, because I lost my mother at a young age. Oh, sweetheart. Ooh, careful, careful, careful. So, obviously I'm doing a naked blog for Trisha Hershberger's channel, and yes, Trisha, you may link to this video, but it's a little weird to be naked with a little furry thing, so I'm not doing that part. But if you would like to see someone who is a little more appropriate in the buff, check out Trisha's channel. I'll put a link into the description. It is not easy to do this with a little furry companion, incidentally. Just saying. In any case, anybody who does happen to see this video and wants a kitten within the next couple of days, if you live in the Los Angeles area, I cannot keep Ire, and of course, if I send her to the pound, she will most likely be destroyed. If I take her to a non-kill shelter, I'm taking up a space for another animal that will most likely be destroyed. That's one of those things about dealing with animals, is you must often deal with the possibility of their death. Ire here is actually what's called a court, not a Russian blue, noted by her heart-shaped head. Courts come from Thailand and are considered signs of good luck, often given to married couples as a pair. They bond very deeply, and of course, if a married couple can do well taking care of their courts, they'll eventually do well taking care of their children. Now, how to deal with loss as opposed to how to protect life. Well, my mother died a week after my 10th birthday of breast cancer. She was in a lot of pain, and in a way I was glad that her suffering was over. Although I miss my mother deeply, I would not wish another second of that agony on her. Cancer is a horribly debilitating disease. Among the Hebrew, there is a saying, "Leave the dead in the ground. Life is for the living." And that's part of how we do it, is we just have to remember that life goes on, and to live your life anything but to the fullest would be a betrayal of the memory of your lost loved ones. My mother loved me very dearly, worked very hard to take care of me. In fact, 8 years after her death, she was still taking care of me in terms of survivor's benefits, which is a little like disability, but when you lose your parents, the government steps in and gives you money so you can take care of yourself. And in fact, the house I live in once belonged to my mother. It was bequeathed to her 3 children and still remains in their possession. Now my father, on the other hand, well, I think he's still alive, but we don't get along. No. Right. In any case, my mother loved animals. To a certain extent, my taking care of animals is a homage to her. So, of course, she taught me to be a good person, and anytime I come across a living thing in need of assistance, I do my best. And I remember her for it. Life is for the living. and we live on in the memories of those we've lost. That memory is, of course, not always the same. I mean, my mother was a very angry person. She lived a very hard life, and her behavior reflected it. She was quick with a belt and a spatula. But, you know, I've learned to forgive all of that because, hey, I was a dumb kid. Sometimes I deserved it. Sometimes I didn't. But she was doing what she felt was best. It's come to me to live my life as best as I can to remember that person. And another very deep loss in my life was a fellow by the name of Elliot Orchid, who served his country in World War II as a pilot. He later became a member of the Orange County Engineer's Office and laid out the streets of Orange County. I had the opportunity to take care of him as he was passing. And the last thing he said to me was that he was sorry that he could not talk, so that he could not speak to me. I remember that moment very clearly. His wife refused to bathe unless I came to look after her husband because she was so worried that no one else would have the demeanor to look after the man. That's another way I learned to cope very well with death. I learned to do everything I can for the living and to ease that passage. Elliot was a good man. I still have many of his tools and books. His family, I guess, didn't want them. I guess they're not interested in mathematics. But this is, of course, beside the point. The hardest deaths for us to deal with... You're such a sweet girl. You're hardly moving at all. The hardest deaths for us to deal with are, of course, those wherein someone is taken from us quite suddenly. With my friend Joshua, who was my first friend in kindergarten, he was hit by a car while on his bicycle. He was knocked off the car and his head was crushed. I still don't know if I've ever dealt with that because he was such a young boy and his life ended so suddenly. But then, I wish not to blame anyone, but Joshua was kind of a spoiled child. His death taught me the need for discipline. And so if I ever have children of my own, I will raise them properly so that they understand the difference between right and wrong and understand how to keep themselves safe. That's the best I can do for him. And often, I mean particularly in my career, I work with the homeless. I've been called on to take care of children, to watch over them in various ways, to assist them with the police, and to physically protect them on numerous occasions. For his death, all I can do is mourn and live better. This is life. Death is a part of it. One day I will die. One day this beautiful little creature on my shoulder will die. These things happen. I'll tell you another story. When I found this little girl the next day, she was completely feral, and now you'll see she's quite docile. Once I got her to stop hissing at me, I took her across the street to a blind man. This blind man is the head of the neighborhood watch, kind of ironically. He was shot in an act of gang violence and lost his sight, destroying the man he was and taking from him his lifelong dream of becoming a veterinarian. He came very close to tears holding this beautiful creature. And I was very happy to have given that to him. Here is a death, in a manner of speaking, that is the hardest to cope with, the destruction of a huge part of ourselves. And yet, he's lived on to help people. And he's trying rather unsuccessfully. My brother's using the bathroom. And he's trying rather unsuccessfully to find a home for this little creature. You miss your mommy? It's okay. I miss my mommy too. So as I say, if you watch this in the next couple of days and you live anywhere in Los Angeles and know someone who would like to provide a loving home for a beautiful animal, send me an email.